Make it 1,000.
I'm all in.
Fuck me.
I need it more than you, buddy.
I just threw away 1,000 because I have no guts.
What is up, guys? My name is Lex. Welcome back to the vlog here at Seminole Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida. First hand I get dealt in pocket aces. Nice start. I raised to 75 and I get 3-bet next to act to 175. Another good start. I'm going to 4-bet here out of position. I make it 475 to go. Back over to my opponent and he announces all in.
All in.
Call.
You got aces.
Yeah.
You got the same hand.
Okay. Heads
You
up.
want twice?
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, twice.
2 boards?
Sure.
Okay, 2 boards.
You actually have aces.
Yes, I do. I'm not lying to you. Clubs and spades.
Just fold every hand.
You don't have aces. That might be a good board for you.
It's a good board for me.
Uh-oh.
It's crazy.
Surprised.
Oh, I almost did you twice.
Oh my god.
Nice hand. The ultimate cooler in Texas Hold'em. Aces versus kings. My opponent hits a king to chop up a $5,000+ pot. Hey, I guess it's good we ran it twice this time. I play a lot of crazy, huge, wild all-in hands throughout this vlog, so make sure to stay tuned for some crazy pots. In this hand, the cutoff races to 60. I call in the strata with king-jack suited. Flop comes down 7-4-2 with 1 club. I've got over cards, backdoor flush draw. When my opponent bets $100 here, I don't want to give up my equity just yet, so I make a pretty loose call out of position, and the turn card is a 6 of clubs. I check over to my opponent, who now continues for a $275 bet, and once he raises pre-flop, bets this flop, and bets this turn, I think a lot of the time he's going to have some overpairs like 10s, jacks, queens, kings, and aces. And I think on this board, I could represent straights, 2 pairs, and sets a lot more often than he can. So I decided to turn my hand into a semi-bluff and raise to $800. My opponent now in the cutoff thinks and decides to call, which I'm pretty sure now he definitely has some of those overpairs, those 1-pair hands. So I'm looking for a club, a king, a jack, and I don't hit any of them. It's an offsuit 3, but this card is an interesting one. It puts a one-liner straight to any 5 on the board. Now, of course, I have king high. I'm never, ever going to be winning this pot if I check and he checks back. So either I'm going to have to bet and bluff to try to win, or I'm going to give up and never win. And I think on this run out, I'm going to have a lot more 5s than him. I think he's going to have 1 single pair hand a lot of the time. I don't want to bet too big. I want to bet a sizing that I would do if I had sets, 2 pairs, and straights. So I decide to bet smaller, a down bet from my turn raise. I make it $650, a little bit less than 1/3 size of the pot. I'm hoping that this sizing will look like I'm rooting for a call, kind of like a leveling war. And also, I just think this opponent's going to think that I'm not going to be bluffing very often on this board. At least that's what I'm hoping. $650 bluffing here with king high. My opponent is tanking. I know now he's got a 1-pair hand. Just praying he doesn't get sticky and hoping he folds. And eventually, he does let his cards go. Good fold, Jordan. I had it. Oof. That was close. All right, getting a nice little bluff through early on. Later, my opponent told me he had pocket queens. At least that's what he told me. Nice to get this one through. Let's move on to the next hand. Middle position player calls for 25. 5-4 suited on the button, a hand I want to raise, build the pot with in position. So I make it 100. My opponent calls, and it takes me a while to register that I just flopped the nuts on ace 2-3 rainbow. Checks to me, I bet out $50. And my opponent calls. Turn card is a 2 pairing the board. When he checks to me, I think I'm going to size up here, trying to get called by all ace-x hands and some non-believing pocket pairs, so I make it $300 to go. And then things get a little bit interesting.
Oh, that's my card, right?
Not really.
8. Raise 800.
I guess it could be. After I placed my bet, my opponent, who I am very friendly with, points at the 2 that paired the board and said, "This is my card." And I think, he probably doesn't have too many 2s. And after I say that, he raises to $800. Now, I have a decision to make. Do I re-raise or just call? And I think in this situation, we just want to call in position with the nuts straight. I mean, the board is paired, so that's what I decided to do. And the final card is kind of bad. It's a 5, somewhat killing my action here. One-liner to any 4, and my opponent now checks over to me. Well, I don't think he's checking a full house, and if he does have a full house, we're just going to double him up. I'm going to go for it here. He's got about 2K behind, so I jam all in for his last $2,000. We don't get snap called, obviously. That means that he does not have a full house. He doesn't have a 4 either, so we're not going to be chopping this pot. We're not going to be losing this pot. We're just praying now for a call. I think a lot of the time he's going to have a middling ace here. He just limp called pre-flop. Probably doesn't have ace-king, ace-queen. However, it's possible he could have those hands. Maybe he's thinking it over here with a hand like king 2 suited, queen 2 suited, something like that. In the tank for a while, obviously rooting for a call, and eventually we do get the call.
Alright, come with you, like.
He is pocket threes.
No, I flop.
Straight to the 5.
Lucky flop. A nice flop indeed. End up winning a big pot here. This puts us up a few $1,000s on the night. Throughout the last couple months, I've just been running very pure, very hot, really, really good. And I'm on one of the biggest upswings of my entire poker career. So it feels pretty good to come in here on a Sunday night when I didn't really feel like playing and end up winning a couple $1,000s. However, the night is still very early, and there is still some crazy huge pots left to come. Next up, button raises to 75. I call in the big blind with pocket 6s. Straddle calls, and we flop a set on king 6-4 with a flush draw. Action checks all the way around, unfortunately. Turn 9 of spades. I check. Straddle checks, and now the button puts out a bet of $100. Now, given the fact that he was the initial raiser and the flop came down king high with 2 spades, I don't think he's going to have too many flushes when he does not c-bet on this board. I think once he bets here on the turn, could be stabbing, could have a middling king X hand that he checked back for pot control, or could just have the ace of spades. I raise for value here with my set. I make it 450, back over to the button, and he makes the call. Final card now does not pair the board, but it doesn't bring out another spade. 3 of diamonds. I have to decide now what's the best way to get more money out of my hand. Is it to bet or is it to check? And I think against this player type who definitely is capable of bluffing, I think checking on this river is the best. I don't think he's going to pay me off very often if I bet here, and I think if I check, I can allow him to value bet worse hands and also allow him to potentially bluff with hands like ace-queen with the ace of spades or queen-jack with the queen of spades. So that's what I decided to do. I check over to my opponent on the button, who thinks for about 20 seconds and then fires out a bet of $700. And immediately when I saw this sizing, I thought to myself, you know what? I just don't think this is a bluffing sizing. This somewhat feels like a value bet. I think it's very possible he could have a flush here. I went through all the options in my head. I thought about folding, I thought about just calling, and then I also thought about jamming all in, thinking that maybe he could have king 9. I think jamming all in is just too thin. I think folding is just a little bit too tight versus a capable player. I think I'm just going to have to call, so that's what I do. I just call. I'm not shocked. A little unfortunate there, up against Jack 8 of spades. We flopped a set, he turned a flush, we did not boat up, and I lose over $1,500 in this hand. Next up, a new Spanish pro sits down with the table, races in the cutoff to 75. I 3-bet King-Jack offsuit out of the big blind at $300, a hand I want to be 3-bet or folding out of position. I elect to 3-bet this time. My opponent calls, and we see an ace 9-4 board. I check over to him, and he checks this one back. Turn card is the 5 of hearts. I decide now to go with a delayed c-bet with my king high. Once he races preflop, calls, my 3-bet then checks back this ace-high board. I think he's going to have a lot of middling pocket pairs. Potential hands like king, queen, queen, jack, jack 10, hands with equity against me. So I make it 225, and he ends up making the call. Going here to the final card, which pairs the board with another 4. I'm left here with king high. What should I do? Long story short, I don't think he's going to have ace king very often, if ever. I don't think he's going to have an ace very often. I think he's going to have a lot of middling pocket pairs that can't withstand too much pressure. So I decide to apply max pressure and go all in for a 2x pot size jam of $2,000, hoping to get him to fold out some middling pocket pairs that can't hold on versus this sizing, but unfortunately he calls pretty quickly. I show the king high, he shows ace queen. Yep, that's one of those hands we will never get him to fold. A little unfortunate there, kind of ran into the top of his range. I wonder what would have happened if he did have a hand like pocket 7s or pocket 8s. Looking back, I mean, I could easily have some big hands on this board. I could have aces as played, could have ace king, ace 9 suited, pocket 9s. All those hands I potentially could play this exact same way. Unfortunately, this time we ran into it and ended up losing over a $5,000 pot with a bluff. Over the next few hours, the table's good. Lots of action. Chips are flying, but for me, I just can't get too much going. Anytime I make a hand, I'm just up against a slightly better hand. I'm down a few $1,000s. It's 1:45 a.m. I've been playing for a few hours. I decide to call it a night, rack up my chips, and head to the cage until, as I'm walking to the cage, I see a very well-known VIP action player walk in at 1:45 a.m. and sit right down at the 5-10 table, which is now playing 5-handed. I make a quick U-turn and head back to the table. There's no way I'm going to miss this opportunity to play with this player, so I sit back down in my exact seat and I strap in, ready to battle. And what better timing it is with pocket aces again, this time in the big blind. VIP action player calls the button, small blind calls, I make it 125, straddle calls, button calls, small blind calls, and we go 4 ways to jack, jack, 8 with 2 spades. Small blind checks, I check on this board, and now under the gun player bets small, $100, button folds, small blind calls, and I think my hand's going to be best here a lot of the time. Don't really just want to check call. Think I can get called by a lot of straight draws and flush draws and 8x hands, pocket 9s, pocket 10s. So I raise here to $400. My opponents fold, and we get this one through. It's now 2:30 in the morning, late night, short-handed. I love it. Pocket jacks, there's a raise. I re-raise on the button, and a Euro Pro makes the call. In position to 3, 4, 5. He checks to me, and on this board, it's obviously pretty sketchy. There are some straights and some sets that he could have. With one pair, we do have to be a little bit careful, but it's 5-handed, cutoff versus button. My hand should be best a decent amount of the time. I make it 130, and he calls. Turn card pairs the top card with a 5. Now, this could potentially be a better card for him, but given the fact that I 3-bet cutoff versus button, I could have a lot of 5s in my range. Can have ace 5, 5, 6, 4, 5, could have the bluffs like king 5 suited. So I think I could easily bet this turn card or check back. I decided to check back this time, and the final card is an 8. My opponent checks. I put out a big bet of $800, and we get paid off, and I win a decent pot. It is now 3 o'clock in the morning. Action player opens the button. I 3-bet queen 10 of spades in the big blind, the 225, and he makes the call. Heads up here out of position to 997 with 1 spade. I decide to check out of position against an active player, and he checks back. Turn card is a 6. I check again, looking to give up in this hand. And now my opponent fires out a $225 bet, and I had all intentions of just giving up and folding, but for some reason, I just didn't feel like he was too strong. Felt like he was just taking a stab here since I checked to him twice, and I decided to do a suicide move, which is check raise bluff out of position to $750 with absolutely zero equity against a player who loves to call, who is very well off. What a terrible punt. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing here at 3 o'clock in the morning. And of course, my opponent makes the call. And again, the final card is the deuce of clubs. And for the 3rd time in this session, I am left with absolutely nothing. in a big pot, and I have to figure out, should I go for it or should I check and give up?
I'm gonna bet 1,075.
I fold.
I decide to go for it, and the button folds and shows ace 6 offsuit for a pair of sixes. I would say this is some run good here. End up getting this bluff through. Interesting hand for sure. I was definitely lucky there. I think a lot of the time he's going to call. For some reason, he folded, and we take down a decent pot. Just to show the wild stuff happening on this table, 3:30 in the morning, one of the crazier hands I've ever seen, where there was a raise, action player calls, and I call. There was a bet on the flop and a call by the action player, and all in on the turn and a call, and 7 deuce suited wins on a king jack 6-6-3 board. 7 high wins, and over $3,500 pot. The action player had 4 deuce of hearts and misses with 4 high. 7 high wins, a massive pot. Just insane. A couple hands after that, I put on the $50 restraddle, which is actually just a blind raise. Action player calls in the small blind. Big blind player raises to 275. With 8 deuce suited, could easily fold here, but I'm already 50 in. I'm in position. Pretty deep stack, so I make the call. Action player calls, and I flop big on a 10 high board. Straight draw and flush draw for me. Big blind checks, initial raiser checks, and with this much equity, I just bet big here, $600. Not sure if I should be betting with this particular hand, but I've got 8 high. I mean, I don't have any showdown value, so I bet, and the big blind player, VIP, says 600 more, so he raises me, min raises me here out of position. Interesting spot. He's got around $2,000 left in his stack. Initial raiser folds, and with this much equity, I just can't fold. It's 3:30 a.m. I announce all in for over $2,000, and he snap calls me. I ask him once or twice, and he says one time. Over 6K in the pot, we're going to have to get lucky. Turn card pairs the board with a 6. Ew, gross. That sucks. Not the card I wanted. We could be drawing dead. Final card, 4 of hearts. I miss everything, and I'm up against pocket aces. A super sneaky, slow-played pocket aces by the VIP action player at 3:30 in the morning, and I end up doubling him up in over a $6,000 pot. I was going to go home 2.5 hours ago, only losing about 2 or 3K on the night. I sat back down, ready to play some big pots, and I end up losing a big one with 8 deuce suited with a straight draw and flush draw up against pocket aces. Yikes. Kind of kicking myself here. The only good thing, if there ever is a good thing about losing over a $6,000 pot and doubling up the action player, is the money is just always in play. He's playing 100% of hands. We're 5-handed super late at night, and I actually do go on a little bit of a tear where I win 3 or 4 pots in a row, and I get back all the money that I just lost with 8 deuce suited, and now I'm back only down about $1,500 or $2,000 on the night. It's now 5 o'clock in the morning. I've been playing since 8 o'clock. I'm getting tired. Probably should just leave, but then I pick up a monster. I 3-bet here to $400. I get a call from the VIP action player and a call from a Euro Pro, and oh yeah, I've got pocket aces, the best hand you can get in position. 3 ways, over $1,200 in the middle to 776 to hearts. On this board with pocket aces, we can mix checking and betting. If I did have a hand like pocket 9s or 10s or jacks, I'd want to bet for more protection. But with a hand as strong as aces, with the ace of hearts, I think there is some merit to checking here, allowing the action player to catch up or potentially try to bluff. So I decided to check back and get a very good turn card. It's another 7. I now make the nut full house. I even counterfeit a hand like pocket 6s. Obviously loving life. 5 a.m. Stuck a little bit of money. Deep stacked. Short-handed poker. Pocket aces. Full house. Can't get too much better than this. There's already a ton of money in this pot. And on this board, I feel like it's definitely possible to get some more. Small blind player checks. Euro Pro to my right checks. And now we obviously have to bet. I make it $450. The action player just loves to call, and when he says, I can't fold, and puts in $450, man, this is great. Just praying he's got something like 10s or jacks. And then when the big blind player calls $450 as well, I'm liking this situation even more. I think the big blind player, once he double flats pre-flop and then calls this bet, has got like 8s or 9s or 10s. So when the final card comes out, a king, I actually have mixed feelings. When this river card's a king, it's going to be very hard to get called by the Euro Pro on my right when he has 8s or 9s or 10s, considering that I'm going to have a lot of ace king or king queen in my range. However, it's very possible that the action player could have a hand like king 10, king jack, king queen, ace king, and he just made a full house. They both check to me. This pot is huge. Over $2,600 in the middle. I have to decide how much I want to bet with my nut full house, and I decide I'm going to bet it all. I go all in for around 3.6K effective, about a 1.5x pot jam on the river. I think this is the best play with the action player in the pot, just considering if he does have a king, we want to try to get max value, and maybe he looks me up with a pocket pair that is unbelieving. Also, I've just been blasting off this entire session. I've shown one bluff with king jack. I tried to bluff a 2x pot size river jam with king jack offsuit and got called. I just lost a $6,000 pot with 8 deuce suited versus aces. Could look like I'm steaming. I want to use that image. I'm all in. Action player thinks, and unfortunately he folds. And now it's over here on the big blind Euro Pro, and he decides to call. I've got the second nuts in a $10,000 pot. I only lose 2 quads. Oh my God. 7-8 suited from the big blind. That's quads. Quads versus aces at 5 o'clock in the morning to lose over a $10,000 pot. How gross. How sick is that? Oh my God. What a run out. What a hand, just disgusting. Over $10,000 plus pot is getting shipped to my opponent here on the right. I had just an insane session tonight. I was up money. I was down a little bit money. I was about to leave, came back to the table, was fighting back to even, then punted off with 8 deuce of clubs, then get into a great spot with pocket aces and lose to quads. Over a $10,000 pot not going my way. The table's still amazing. A lot of money on the table, but it's past 5 o'clock in the morning. I've been playing forever, and after this pot, I'm a little deflated. My dogs have been alone for a while. It's time to call tonight. I end up racking up my chips, heading to the cage, and cashing out. It is currently 5:25 a.m. The sun's about to come up here in about an hour and a half in South Florida, and I just got finished playing over a 10-hour session at the Hard Rock, and it did not go well. Ended up losing $6,650. Came in right off the bat. Aces to kings, chopped, flopped a straight, stacked my opponent, punted off with king jack offsuit and a bluff into a Spanish Euro Pro. Ended up leaving, going to the cage, then seeing the VIP action player, come down and sit at the table, so I had to come back and play with him. And after that, things went wild. Ended up losing like a $7,500 pot with 8 deuce of clubs, where I missed a straight and flush draw against pocket aces, and then I get pocket aces and make a full house, 7s full of aces, and I lose to quads, like a $10,000 pot there. Sick, nasty, not my best day when it comes to running good. Over a $6,000 loss, however, isn't that bad for how bad I ran, so I will take it. But I've been completely honest with you guys throughout this entirety of this vlog series. From February of 2021, I've always been honest. I haven't sugarcoated anything. I've been honest with my emotions, and I haven't been fake, and I've showed you guys basically what it's like to play poker for a living, or what it was like for me to play poker for a living and dealing with the swings. In the beginning of my career, when I started playing 510, some of these big losses really affected me. When I would come in and lose $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, I distinctly remember talking to the camera and just being in a shitty mood, hurting. Oh my God, I lost 7K up there. I remember this was like 2.5 years ago in the summer. I had lost like a bunch of money, probably 6,000 or 7,000 in a 5, 10, 25 game. And I was legitimately in my car speaking to the camera, and it hurt. It was rough. I, didn't know if I wanted to continue to play poker. In the car here for the outro because it's a crazy Saturday night and I'm tilted. I just had the biggest losing session of my life, guys. The biggest losing session of 3 years of poker. I lost $6,000. It hurts pretty bad. It's just like, what the hell just happened to me, honestly? I don't even know. Like, well, I'm in a completely different spot now, thankfully. Luckily, gratefully, I'm in a completely different spot now financially, where this $6,000 loss like just doesn't really do anything to me, because I'm lucky enough to be playing in pretty amazing games and running my own game, and I'm on like, since June, I'm on like a $100,000 upswing. So this 6K loss doesn't hurt as bad as it used to, and it makes me kind of like enjoy poker a little bit more, because I'm at the point now where I don't stress at all about the money, when in the past I stressed about the money. And when you're stressing about the money and trying to play poker and you're losing, it just makes it pretty unfun. But tonight, I mean, I was losing, I was getting my ass kicked, I was running bad, but I still was having a good time. I was laughing, I was talking, and to come away with a 6K loss, it's all right. I'll try to get it back. But I've just been on an insane upswing. My game in general at Coconut Creek has been going great, as you guys have been seeing that. And yeah, today is one of those days. I was due though. I was due for one of these bad runs, bad beats and stuff. I mean, I won $23,000 2 weeks ago in my Coconut Creek game. Last week ended up winning like, I think $5.5, maybe $6,000. So I was due for a bad night, and I'll take it in stride. I'll be back in a few days. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Back at the Hard Rock, my old stomping grounds. I mean, this is where I started playing poker in 2018. I would come up here every single weekend and grind $200 stacks. So to be able to lose 6K and not even feel it, that feels good to me. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, I'll see you.